So they say confession is good for the soul. They also say hard ears won't hear, one way will feel. So I am here to confess my sins because this is a true story. When I was looking at this property, I actually engaged professional services. I invited my friend and colleague, Vicki Telford from Vicki Telford Architects, a two-time president of the Barbados Institute of Architects, to come down here and give her opinion on the property. And because she's a pro, she was able to tell me very quickly what she thought the strengths and weaknesses are and the things I need to do. Did I listen to Vicki? Of course not. But I got Pinterest and I got YouTube and I'm doing this myself. So I always had what Vicki said in the back of my head, but I got Pinterest because you got Pinterest, right? And at the end of the day, I just watch HGTV and this house small, so I will deal with this. Well, let me tell you, right? About 3 months into this project, everything Vicki said, which I chose to ignore, started to settle in. But because I'm a big girl and I know how to say sorry, right? I even invited Vicki back today to go through some of the questions that I had asked her that didn't listen to, so that you can get the information firsthand. And in doing that, she has shared a wealth of information that you will be able to apply to your projects moving forward. So you are going to get an earful and an eyeful today. I'm Kelly Johnley and this is Bajan Renovation. So Vicki, I will start this conversation with the first question I actually asked you back when I was planning to listen to your sound advice. When someone is looking at a fixer-upper property, what should they be looking for as a potential homeowner?
As a potential homeowner?
Yes.
That is an unfair question.
Why?
For the homeowner, because they don't have a trained eye.
Okay.
So it's really difficult to put that load on them, where they have to know to come to check the roof for leaks, to check the walls for moisture, to see if the slab is cracked, to see if the slab is falling, to see if the reinforcement is failing, to see if there's water coming up from the ground. Most people think it's only coming from the top and through the roof, but it might be coming through the ground, through the earth, through the slab, through the walls. And so you may not know what to look for. So even if I list you those things,
you still don't know.
You might not know how to look and see if there's moisture coming up the wall. So, yeah.
So to be fair to the process, guys, when I was in the early offer period of this house, that is when Vicki came. Right? So that is how I knew that this was a good house. I mean, from a financial perspective, I knew the numbers made sense to me, but Vicki did come and caution me on a few things. Didn't listen, but I was cautioned. Which is why we're still here fixing the house. But she did take a look, and I know one of the things you had said is that it's a sound structure, meaning that it is solid, it is strong. You didn't see just from a casual walk through any issues with the foundation. You did point out that work had to be done with the ceiling, and even though I didn't notice it immediately, you like, Kelly, you know, the wiring for this house is off. And what are you planning to do about the kitchen? I was like, what's wrong with the kitchen? She said, where's the fridge? And I was like, dang, got no space for the fridge.
It's true.
So you are saying if someone is looking at a fixer in particular, walk with a professional. Who is the professional we should walk with? Because you hear about the QS, the contractor, the foreman, the architect. I just want to go and look at a house with somebody. Who should I engage?
Obviously, from my point of view, I would always say go with the architect. Take an architect with you. Typically because the architect is the person on the project who leads the project and coordinates all the different disciplines often. But I would go as far as to tell you, if you don't have one, go with any professional.
Okay.
A professional who has been in the industry for a long time. So a quantity surveyor, a structural engineer, architect, somebody who has done this all before.
Let them go with you to give a professional opinion before you go and make the offer.
Before you go and make the offer. Actually, you should get them before you're even thinking about the property.
Okay, and what? Why?
Because they will typically steer you in the direction of going down the right path. And the right path is the first thing you have to do is to know your budget. And a lot of us say, oh yeah, I know my budget. I think I could spend about 30,000.
Because we watch HGTV, of course we know our budget.
Exactly. Or 300,000 or even 3 million.
Yes.
But even a client who has 3, 10, 20, 30 million to spend, spends it wisely.
Okay.
And you can't throw away money. So even if you have the biggest budget in the world, you need to know how much you're spending for this particular project.
Well, since you touched on budget, and budget is something that comes up quite often, I often get a lot of questions about what things cost, you know? And the truth is, I really do depend on the contractor to guide me, because I am not costing out nails. You know, you tend to cost out phases of a project.
That's why you can have a quantity surveyor. A quantity surveyor does exactly that. A quantity surveyor will measure and price every block, every square foot of mortar, every nail, every screw, every cupboard handle, every hurricane rafter to tie the roof down, everything.
Okay.
And when you have that and you have it listed out, you can then take that, present it to a contractor and ask them to put their price to it. Because everybody has their own price, different markup, so on. But you have your cheat sheet.
And you're, I guess, an independent costing.
Independent costing based on certain line items. Because somebody may forget to put in the well or not realize you need a well.
Got you.
Which comes back to the drawings.
This drawings thing is a sore point, okay? But I plan to confess my sins. You know, they say confessions are good for the soul. Right. So next question that I had for you. So we spoke about if we are looking at a fixer, what to do. Now, how do I, as the homeowner, work with you or any other professional to keep these projects within budget? I know one thing people like to do, and I'll raise my hand because I've made some significant ones, is change course when the project has already started. Can you speak a bit about that? Because I think you've seen your share of that.
Absolutely. So it's, you know, the old adage, which is measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to do. And it's much better to do it on paper. So you can move walls around, you can come up with a whole new kitchen, you could rejig the whole house on paper where it's not costing anything.
Right.
But if you have already started construction and you then decide you're making changes, not only is it costly because you kind of have to take a step backwards before you can take 2 forward, or maybe 2 back and 1 forward. But you also need to make sure that you are catering for how the process should have gone.
Got you.
Right? So you now need to factor that in, which may not be where you are in the construction, number 1. Number 2, changes and variations in a construction project. People say they're costly, but they don't really understand why it's so costly. It's also costly because it comes at a different rate. So if drywall is typically $2, then it's gonna be $3.50 in a variation.
Yes.
Because the contractor either has to bring that trade back to site and start over.
You have to knock down and go again.
You may need to knock down. I had somebody come to me the other day and say, but why, what's this price for? And I was like, demolition. Because it costs, and they couldn't understand it because they just couldn't think it through.
Yes.
But when I had to explain to them, men have to come with jackhammers, hill
remove this thing that you wanted and don't want anymore, and start over.
There's a labor cost to that, and equipment cost, and sometimes material costs. You might need scaffolding. You may need a dust barrier. You may need all kinds of things
to make changes. So one thing we can do is plan on paper to minimize any material changes to our project.
Absolutely.
We're getting there, guys.
Absolutely.
We're getting there.
And changes also tend to have a ripple-on effect. So you might make this small change and think, okay, all right, I'm gonna just move this wall. But you don't realize that moving this wall has this implication and that implication. Or you might need to change your roof structure because the support isn't there. Or you can't take down that wall because the roof is actually sitting on it and it's a load-bearing wall versus a non-load-bearing wall.
All right, so I'm going to throw a little, what's it called, a little spanner in the works, right? When I was starting my project, even though I didn't even have the costings from you, when you hear about all of these things that you just get your little budget for your works, right? You know, you barely get your little renovation budget, and this architect now coming here telling you about this body and that body that now gonna come and do work, etc., to come and eat up my good money, and I ain't lay a block yet. And that gave me a little bit, not even a sticker shock, because I didn't get it, but it was like, okay, I can handle this myself. What would this architect with 20 years of experience have on me on my Pinterest board? How do you what do you say to somebody who, like me, is starting a project and is hesitant to engage, I guess you could say professional services, preliminary services? What do you say to that person who is like, all right, well, I can see if I could figure this out, or you know I asking you.
I could say so much about that. I would start by saying, if your tooth was hurting you, would you go in your bedroom and pull it out yourself?
I would not.
No.
Okay.
If you were investing in a company and they gave you the profit and loss statement, would you go and try to read it yourself? No, it's a foreign language. So you're gonna find an accountant and say, listen, friend, help me.
Even if you could read it, you don't fully appreciate all the details.
And the ramifications and the implications and the fine print. You need surgery, you go to a doctor. I do not understand for the life of me why homeowners and a house is typically your single largest investment in life. You're taking that single largest investment that you saved all this money for or worked really hard to now go to the bank with, and you're gonna do it with no guidance and no professional? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. You've got to get a professional.
I'm really glad I get Safari piece.
and people will say that, well, Jenny did their house and it's all right.
What I can tell you is that I did have some challenges. The first was, Vicki tell me get the drawings, because as you know, it's the older home, so the drawings are very much outdated. Or at least the drawings do not reflect the structure as it is.
Right.
Did I listen to Vicki? No. And for a while it was okay until the electrician comes. Until the plumber comes.
That's right.
Right? Until you now have to buy materials, you don't have measurements. But the electrical one was a big one, because I remember standing there, he was like, all right, mistress, show me the electrical plans. What's the electrical plan for the house? Where the conduits going, etc., etc. And he thought I was a contractor because I'm out here fronting like I know, right? And I said to myself, this is what Vicki was talking about.
Absolutely.
And then, you know,
and those services, that is such a major part of the project. The electrics, the plumbing, the ventilation, critical. And you need to make sure you have licensed people doing that work.
Because I hear a lot of people that lose money, or they are trying to correct shoddy work.
And you can have a good electrician who can do the work fine. But the issue is when you then have to go to government electrical department.
Yes, I'm going there shortly.
Right.
Yes.
Government electrical engineering department, and you need to get your certificate. It needs to be submitted by a licensed electrician.
I'm glad you touched on that, because that's the next question I had before I get to what I call the pretty up question. So one of the questions that I got pretty early up in this project was, how come I didn't have to go to town and country planning, which you have now told me is called the physical
development department.
Did any of y'all actually know that? Anyways, I know they won't be called that, but let's
Sorry,
just say,
I'm lying, actually. It's called the Planning and Development Department.
Yes, Planning and Development Department.
Yes.
All I have to say is that we still go to shows at Sherborne.
Yes.
But okay.
And town planning, submit drawings to town planning.
When it comes to building codes, what you can do, what you can't do, is an architect the person who stands between you and those agencies? Are they the ones that have the information that can say, you need to apply for this, you need to apply for that, or is this another body that you now need to go and engage?
Absolutely. I would actually say they don't just stand between you and that person, they stand next to you. They hold your hand. and guide you through the process. Hey, Kelly, this is what you need to do. Your next step is submitting to town planning. What do we need there? Specific drawings and a specific application.
And y'all know where these things are, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
We know how we have the access to their portal. We have all of that. We can submit that. We know the requirements on the drawings. Like, you may not realize that you need to submit a drainage plan. How do you even do that? How do you even connect manholes? Where does the toilet come out? All that kind of stuff.
YouTube will help us. Just kidding.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is a part of the professional services. And is this something strictly for an architect, or is this something that a contractor does?
Typically not. Typically the architect does it. It depends on the type of project, but a land surveyor can do it.
Yes.
If you're doing like a big development and you're dividing it and so on, then you can go to a land surveyor and they will then submit to the planning department.
Okay, so I'm going to get to the question. We were joking off camera saying, when somebody tell you that they're pregnant, the first thing they want to know is when you're getting the next baby, or what you're naming the baby, or something like that.
Yeah.
People always ask about the aesthetics of a property, so I can't let you go unless I ask this question. For someone who is doing a reno, working with a limited budget, where can I put funds to get the best visual impact? Where do I save, because most of us do not have unlimited budgets.
Right. So in terms of visual impact, I would say don't skimp on spending money in the structure, of course, because that will come back to bite you later down. But in terms of just the physical, what you're seeing, you can plan early. And you can do your drawings where you can do a rendering, and you can look at different colors on plan, on drawings, in an elevation, in a 3D.
And one of the facilitates this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so you can choose your colors. You can then look at an accent color. Now, the more colors you throw into a project, the more expensive it is. Why? Because each color comes in a different bucket. And you can't say, I just want this much because I'm only doing one wall. You still have to buy the smallest can.
Okay.
So there's that. But you can then decide, where are you going to put your accent walls? Do I need one in the bedroom? No, I don't spend a lot of time in my bedroom. Most of my time I spend in the kitchen or in the family space. So that's where I'm going to put an accent wall. On the outside, I'm not going to use 8 different colors. I'm going to look at this and maybe I'm going to narrow it down to 2 or 3 where I want to have a trim, an accent, something defined, something contrasted. That's what you can do.
Let me ask this question. What is the difference between the services of a designer and an architect?
What kind of designer? There are all kinds of designers.
Okay.
So you can have a furniture designer, an interior designer.
I guess an interior. I mean, for smaller projects.
Right.
I've had someone come and lay out spaces,
Right.
choose colors, etc.
So literally that.
Okay.
An interior designer focuses on the interior. So in other words, the 4 walls that you're looking at, the ceiling, the floor, and the finishes inside, typically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the interiors.
Now that I'm thinking about this, even though I was sticker shock without a sticker shock, usually professional services like this, how are they costed? Is it a base cost, a percentage of project cost, pull a number out the hat cost?
Not that one.
But
all of
generally
the
across the board, if someone says, okay, I've listened to this, I am going to call the architect.
Right.
I'm going to not be like Kelly and tear down half a house and look around and be like, okay, well, let's make the most of
And
this
spend
now.
more than you need to spend in doing extras.
How are these services costed out really?
It varies.
Okay.
It varies. So the best thing I would tell you is secure the advice of maybe an organization or somebody who has no skin in the game, so you can get the recommended scale of fees for an architect.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So depending on the project is what I'll tell you. So project types have different costs. Project sizes have different costs.
Okay.
So if it's a huge residential project, that is going to be different from a very small commercial project.
Okay.
If you're doing a renovation with an add-on, as you have learned here, which is an exceedingly good example, this is very involved.
Yes.
Because there's so much
Very involved.
and it is tiny. And there are many people who think that
Because it's small. Because
Right.
it's physically small.
that I don't need an architect for that. But that's actually when you need the guidance. You don't have just this green field and this blank canvas to work with. You are working with exacts that are already there. So you need to meet the existing roof. You have to match the existing wall.
Yeah.
You have to meet the level of that existing slab.
Got you.
And that can be very involved and quite intricate. Yeah.
Okay. Now, just in case, because I'm sure you are thinking that what Vicki is saying is very helpful, very informative, or you're like, I wish I had done that. Vicki is actually one of the contributors for the Bajan Renovation magazine, because we got bare brand name people writing for this magazine. Just in case you thought that I was the person doing the writing, Vicki is actually a contributor, and I know she's been very good in submitting her articles on time. So that is something to look forward to when you get your copy, expert weighings just like this. Back to the show. So I'm going to close off by asking you a question about budget again, and simply because it's what most of us think about before, during, and after a project. And we know that we can't say everybody working on the house until we're in the house drinking tea. What do you say to somebody who, despite the best laid plans, is told at some point in the project you may have to add additional funds to get what you want, or you recommend doing this now, this additional improvement, and they now have to put in some money? What do you say to that person like me that is like, are you serious?
I'd say don't be scared. Don't be scared. And with anything, you need to plan and prepare. So you need to look at it and see. Some people get very nervous, and it's $5 or $10. Not literally, it might be 50 or 1,000, 100,000. But when you've gone to the bank and you have a mortgage for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, when you add on that extra and you look at your monthly payments, they've actually only increased by $3 each month. Yeah. And so then you're able to spread it over the course of the project, or the course of your repayments, and then you're able to get that added value for your project at that time. And it may be something that's critical that will benefit you as you live there for the next 50 years of your life, because we don't build for a year or 2 or 3. Well, few of us do. You tend to build for the rest of your life.
Vicki, this was very helpful. I will say again, I only half listened to Vicki when she spoke to me last year, and the other half I did not listen to came back to bite me at the midpoint of this project.
It's good that you can be honest about
that. I would say I have found a way to get through, but I think in many ways it's because of the team that I am working with and the relationship they would have had with my dad, so there's a comfort level there, and you do feel like the team is looking out for you.
And that counts for a lot.
So I'm glad you are here to speak to people whose ears having less wax because they may not be as fortunate. Because if it was not for the contractor and the foreman really taking an interest in the project, I would be out to sea.
And that's really important. One of the other things I always tell people when they say, well, what to look for, not just qualifications and certifications and referrals and so on, you also have to have chemistry.
Yes.
So just what you spoke about, that is so important, that you can actually say to them, hey, listen, here's my challenge. Or what do you really recommend here? And you feel that they're working with you as a team. That's critical. The chemistry you have, because it's like your lawyer who you need to trust and tell them your private secrets. Well, same with the architect. You need to tell them the budget, what you're really going through, what your vision is. Because we're here to add our expertise to your vision to realize a project that is successful and suitable for you.
Well, and on that note, guys, you got a big, fat, juicy show. Thank you, Vicki Telford, an architect with more than 20 years in the game. A wealth and an age in you. She also runs marathons. That's why she looks like this. But thank you for sharing so freely. I think it sets some people at ease. And I look forward to walking through the house with you now, so you can really tell me off camera how you feel about what I have gone and done here. I'm Kelly Johnley, and this is Bajan Renovation.